or household measures that are taken to prevent crime at home, like putting alarms and the like, so that crime then spills in the street? Or is it because of portable things that make crime possible in the street? And then, of course, murder has stayed fairly stable from 16% in 2011 to 16% currently, and of course, bag snatching and the like. And where do households feel, when do they feel safe? Here we see that at night, people feel, fewer people feel safe at night, walking alone. Well, during the day it's fine, but at night, fewer South Africans feel safe, 30%. So 70% feel unsafe at night. And then, of course, in terms of households who could not go to open spaces during the parks and the like, 33% find it difficult. 22% find it difficult to allow children to go and play in parks. So what kind of society are we, and how are we reacting to these crime levels? Why do people commit crime? People think that others commit crime because of drug-related need. Overwhelmingly, people think that crime is a result of drugs. So in the minds of South Africans, reality or not, crime is driven by crime. So drugs create crime. So basically, our psyche suggests that crime begets crime. And 77% of how South Africans believe that drugs are the great driver. 48% look at need, that indeed life is so difficult, and greed almost the same, and then also non-financial motives. What are the weapons used during crime? And here we are looking at with Gauteng and Western Cape and Gauteng having the highest possibility of households accessing police stations or remedy faster than any other province, with Limpopo actually having remedy with the longest time spent. How have we seen policing in our streets? Since 2011, police visibility has actually declined at the level of a day, stayed the same in a week, never actually increasing from 12 to 19%, and at least once a month slightly increasing. But generally the verdict is police visibility across time has declined. That's the general verdict. How have people been satisfied with the police? Looks like there had been a decline, monotonic, and then of course a turnaround around 2014 to about 3 percentage points increase from a low of 56% since 2011, where it declined from a high of 64%. What about courts? Now the courts are getting a lower score compared to a high in 2011. Now the courts are seen as not really executing what they should execute in terms of incarceration of criminals. The most common reason why people are not happy is that courts are too lenient with criminals. 43% say these guys don't incarcerate these criminals long enough. The investigation, this criminal justice system takes too long. There is no proper serving of notice, not enough convictions, and of course perpetrators released too early. So you can see that up to 70% relate to the how the courts make their decisions. So 70%, up to 70% or 75% relate to people not being very happy with the way the decisions are made by the courts, or even 80% because not enough convictions. And of course, others say the courts are corrupt. Perceptions on corruption. Well, the biggest, of course, driver of corruption perception is that employment for jobs. Here we see that people think that they buy jobs. Police receive bribes, traffic fines. If you look at law enforcement, that already accounts for 27%. That the people who have to fight corruption themselves, fight traffic fines and police, are law enforcers. And they constitute 27% of what people think are drivers of corruption. And then, of course, getting a welfare grant, housing, and so on. So the welfare system also is seen as one of those that are prominent in the corruption space. So is water and electricity, 2.9%. That, of course, you have to pay something to get those services. And of course, why do people pay these things? Of course, they want to lubricate the wheels to move. They must lubricate the wheels to move. If they are not greased, the wheels can't move. So they speed up the process. So 35% of the time, they say, well, you do so that the process can be faster. Of course, you get better treatment than your neighbor. And then, of course, to finalize things, it's all about facilitation. So there's a lot of rent-seeking behavior in the crime scene, where you lubricate the process. It's all about lubrication. And, of course, avoid paying a fine less so. Well, we need to compare the data. As we know that this is a household survey, and police also receive through administration records or record crime through administrative processes. That is, there is a rape, the victim goes and reports the rape. There is an assault, the victim goes and reports the assault. There is a theft, the victim goes and reports the theft. And the police then compile the statistics of this incident. The approach from Statistician is, yes, we go to the households, find out what has happened, how has been the experience of the household. Did you experience crime? Didn't you experience crime? So naturally, the numbers are likely to differ. Ideally, they must be the same. And it's important to record every crime because it helps tactically and strategically to deal with it. So we can see that from the victims of crime, a number of people have actually experienced home robbery here from the victim side, and very few of those are reported as SARS. So there's a total disjunction between that and this. It means these are not reported. There is this particular crime of damage to property, which, of course, police actually have a higher record of. And then, of course, car hijacking, in the victims, you see a higher but a lower reports at the police. And of course, if you look at murder, well, the police get a higher, better record of this. That is 2012. And you see a same pattern right across. So the disjuncture between crime being committed and crime being reported creates a policy dissonance in how crime can be tackled. And of course, there are many reasons that people say we can't go and report this, we solved it ourselves, or the police cannot do anything about it. So this dissonance and disjuncture explains in some ways, or at least shed some light as to what are the gaps in the policy space, in the reaction in that policy space. It is our responsibility to report. Without that information, it's difficult to respond to matters crime. Thank you.
Thank you, SG. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now take your questions. You are humbly requested to identify yourself and the media house you're representing. We'll first start taking questions in Pretoria, then cross over to Cape Town. You are noted, you are noted. Okay, 2 questions so far, okay, you noted. Okay.
Hi, I'm Karen Morn from eNCA. We know that there have been a lot of issues around the leadership of the police, and we've seen a number of national police commissioners leaving in rather unfortunate circumstances, either criminally charged or over issues related to lease deals, etc. Did the survey look at perceptions of how the leadership of the police or the National Prosecuting Authority may be shaping public opinion around crime, and particularly convictions and ability to see justice served properly? Thank you.
Let's deal with that first.
Okay.
Well, I needed to make sure that we deal with this crucial question that you have asked right at the beginning. No, we haven't asked about that.
SG, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
We are picking up a problem. We removed the mics from where you
I see.
you are, and then you said you prefer addressing us from there.
Well said. I think we'll move the mics there now when we take questions. But let me answer the question first now. Thank you very much for correcting my behavior there. We didn't ask that question, but I think as you raise it, it's an important one about how's the governance around enforcement and the criminal justice system. So it's something that we should be able to consult ourselves on and say what will be the form of the question. And if it's of public concern, the Statistician-General has no choice but to create space to ask those kinds of questions. But now we can move these tools. Cell phone there as well. Behind there, there's a phone, the cell phone.
I think they brought it there.
Huh? Or they want to do it?
Okay, we'll take the second question. You noted, sir.
Thank you. My name is Fana. I'm from the SABC News. SG, very interesting that you are talking about this disjuncture between the statistics you are giving us and the policy. One other issue that maybe I would need to get from you is this stock theft. From which provinces are you doing this? What was your concentration when it came to stock theft? Because I see that here it indicates that it's going down in 2016. My understanding has been that daily a goat or a cow is stolen in this area. And I'm saying this because on the 4th I attended a meeting about this very issue. On the 11th I attended a meeting about this issue, that stock theft is rife. It has gone to a level of even stealing donkeys. And what you have said just now, that the police will do nothing about it, it's exactly the perception that the police will do nothing about it. What are the police officials or those in government dealing with police matters? What are they doing with your statistics? If your statistics are saying police will do nothing about it, and that is true, they'll do nothing about it. They're doing nothing about it in Moretele.
Okay, we'll take the third question.
Good morning, General. It's Gerard Pretorius from eNCA. Just on the drug-related, the need, was it asked if the people, South Africans, feel that the police are actually doing enough to curb drugs? Thank you.
Should we take the questions in Pretoria?
Yeah, they get more questions.
Are there questions in Pretoria, in Cape Town? Cape Town? Are there any
No,
questions?
just that we don't.
Okay,
no,
are there
we
any
don't
takers in
have any
Pretoria?
questions.
You noted?
I just have a second question. In terms of the way in which this data is utilized by the police, do you feel that they're actually making use of it, that it's changing their policy? Because otherwise people might think, well, this might be interesting, but what are the consequences on a policy level of this data? Thank you.
Any questions in Pretoria?
I have a panel with myself here that has to answer some of the questions. So, Mike, yeah. My apologies. It looks like I'm very incoherent. My Tuesday is a Monday. Yes, yeah. Cape Town, my apologies for this. So I have a team here, Mama Sting and Isabel will deal with this issue of stock theft. Not that they steal stock, but they'll have to deal with that first question. The question of are the police doing enough was the question on whether police are doing enough to curb drugs. Do the police use the data to deal with how they police? Let me answer those two. We work very closely with the police. In fact, when they process, we have let me take you back a few years, 1998, where we needed to deal with justice, criminal justice system. And it was already identified that the collection of the information is absolutely very poor. It's taken arduously too long to deal with that process. One of the things that we've seen is I worked with every one other police commissioner who came into power to deal with the numbers. And there are several of them who came. And with each departure, things get disorganized, obviously, when the leadership leaves. And that, in part, has corroded the possibility of getting the data systems in place for the criminal justice system. But more recently, we have been, from about 2013, we have really been able to wrestle with this to get both the police statistics, including having some of our staff members working for the police now. They are now appointed under the police, and they are statisticians. So there is something happening there. We work together. And they use the data on the basis of households, surveys, to tactically look at their systems and strategically to locate their processes to deal with crime. So there is that is happening. But I must admit, the process has been excruciatingly slow. Because you really have to drive data. These systems need data to understand. the correlates as well as both the correlates and the contributors as well as causes of crime. You need that data. You need all the kinds of data about society and so on to understand and deal with crime. On the question of whether we asked the question on can police do something about drugs? The question was, why are you not reporting? And the public say the police cannot do anything about it. And that's, I think, a very serious indictment that people have lost hope that the police can do something about things. But we must also remember that the absolute number of crimes has actually declined. Is it because police were there to deter it? Possibly. But we also know that police visibility in the minds of people has also declined. So this information is very, very important in informing how the nature of the discussion around safety and security should be based on these numbers, based on these facts. So I think the important use of this is to elevate the quality of discussions with the police and society so that the decisions can be of a better quality. Without data, you can't arrive at a better quality. Obviously, yes, 2%, moving from 2% and lowering to 2.5, there are still almost 1 million people, 1 million households that experience one or the other form of crime. That is high by any standard. What about expenditure? I think we'll look at some data on expenditure. We didn't include it here. It's an omission. We should have included how much do people spend on securing their own homes. The last time we checked, police budgets were 30 billion, and the public was using about 45 billion to protect themselves. The question is, there's 75 billion to secure for South Africans to feel safe. Now, is 75 billion too much money or too little money? Is it optimally deployed? And these are the issues that we must ask ourselves. And then, of course, if we spend 75 billion, how much are we spending on education? So these numbers must be related to other things, including education, so that hard choices can be confronted and made. So if we don't look at this data with the eye of trade-offs, we'll only look at one tunnel and then forget about that tunnel, go and look at another tunnel and forget about it and look at another tunnel. It must be looked at as a system. So that's the situation. Thanks. Mama City, yes, come and sit here next to the mics. I'll shift.
I think Isabel will have to come and sit. I'll just do a brief account of the issue around the stock and crops theft. The first issue that arises is that these are the very two crimes that we have indicated as underreported. So there is an issue of perceptions, and when it translates into reporting, you find that you have about 70% of reporting for crops and about 80% of livestock. So that also might also be an issue. But of importance is that we distribute the sample across all provinces. All the questions are asked across the provinces, and they all answer, and then we would pick up where it was more prominent across the provinces. Notwithstanding what we have also seen, that there has been a decline from about 40.9% in 2012 to about 29.3% in terms of theft of livestock. That might also be attributable to the issue of underreporting and the fact that there's been another decline in terms of theft of crops from 18% to about 17% in the year 2015-16. So these are the issues that also get attributable for us knowing, perceiving and seeing this theft happening, but when we see the reporting in terms of the numbers in relation to how people end up going to report, seeing it as a lower or something that gets to be a low type of a crime.
I think what remains is the question about drug use and perceptions related to that. But prior to addressing that, I just want to say one of the values of the Victims of Crime Survey is exactly in relation to crimes that are very rarely reported, such as livestock and crop theft. One of the problems people have is that they feel that they have silent voices and they're not heard. I heard your frustration about livestock thefts in Moretele. And so the value of this survey is really that we pick up those things that don't get reported to the police. In relation to the drug, we don't actually have specific questions on drug use, people's perceptions about drug use, and also perceptions about interventions by the authorities to reduce drug use. However, we're currently busy working on a governance survey, which includes several questions that relate to drugs. And we hope that that will be able to help us better strategize and formulate policies related to drug use.
Have you exhausted all the questions?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions on the floor?
Answer.
Okay. Okay, where do I start? I see hands all over. Okay.
Rorisang Khosana from The Citizen. I just want to know if you got any opinion from households about mob justice and how police handle mob justice and the cause of mob justice. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take your question.
Hi, Zianda Ngobo from Eyewitness News 702. With regards to the most crimes, I'm not seeing much about sexual assault. And we know that most of the time sexual assault is from people that you know or someone close to you. So I just wanted to know, in terms of your methodology, if you were able to gather any information about that would obviously make victims want to report that, because it is an underreported crime.
Okay, we'll take your question. Yes.
Sorry, I know I'm asking a lot, but basically what you're saying here, it seems to be, is that there's either perceived or real drop in the level of crime, but it seems that people's faith in the police and the courts is decreasing at quite an alarming rate. Do you have any ideas about why this is happening? And what my other colleague was asking about The Citizen, this thing about mob justice. I mean, we've seen this in Rosettenville. How does a lack of faith in the police and the justice system translate into communities taking the law into their own hands?
We'll take the last two questions.
Kaya Pretorius again from eNCA. Just on the police releasing the crime stats on a quarterly basis, does that assist you in any way and make your job easier?
The last question, sir.
Thank you, Fana, SABC. On the performance of courts, were you able to establish what is it that Limpopo is doing right, that which Western Cape can't do?
Thank you very much. Tough questions. The question of, as I pointed out, there is a decline over time on crime. But the numbers are still very high. I mean, from 831 to 7-something thousands. Those crimes are still very high. Murder has remained almost at the same percentage level, 16%. Shifts in perception in police doing or not doing something about it have remained an indictment. Perceptions on courts, also an indictment. That people have a dim opinion about the criminal justice system. That's the point. That is, when you look at how they think about the courts, how they think about the police, how they think about all these others, the perception is a dim one and is driven by their lived experiences of experiencing crime. And that crime, although declining in their experiences, probably not reaching the threshold where they actually feel safe and secure. I think that's really the central message, that they haven't reached the threshold. So indeed, if you experienced 831,000 opposed to 730,000, yes, it's a decline, but where is the threshold? I don't think that 731, 700 is the threshold. You want, you'd want to test this against both the MTSF, medium-term plan, strategic framework, medium-term strategic framework, which says South Africans are and feel safe, feel and are safe. That's what it says. Compare that with 830,000, or is it 871,000 to 719,000 experienced crimes. Surely, South Africans are and cannot feel safe. So you have to look at the policy statement and what the NDP seeks to do and test it against the statistics and then make the deliberations move. And the numbers do not suggest that South Africans are and feel safe. So there is a long way there. So there is really serious work that has to be done to achieve that. And the numbers that we release continuously help us to see whether whether South Africa is moving there or not. And it's for yourselves to discuss those things. It's for the Statistician-General to put the numbers on the table. Does the release of statistics by the police help, as I say? It doesn't. The police statistics hasn't reached the level of official statistics as yet. We are working on that. But there is nothing that makes me doubt at this stage, through their current practices, to suggest that they are massaging the numbers. No, there isn't any, because I get involved, I look at them. But certainly they cannot be responsible for releasing their own statistics, because we know when policy feels threatened, the likelihood of doing things that protect that threat are very imminent. And that's what the statistics law deals with, as well as the fundamental principles for official statistics deal with. So I should say for now, there isn't anything that threatens that. But I've also not declared that statistics official. Once I do, then it will be declared by the Statistician-General. It will be released by the Statistician-General. For now, we are working together to improve the systems, the methods, and everything. We are working together with them. I think we've covered, unless I've missed something. Pardon? Or mob justice. The issue of mob justice, we didn't investigate it, but it's part and parcel of a culture that evolves, where people start taking law into their own hands. Is it on the increase? Is it on the decline that we are? Well, these things are intermittent. They come and they disappear. They come and they disappear. And at times they are driven by service delivery protests. At times they are driven by drugs. At times they are driven by different things. And we need to engage different tools of inquiry to gain insights into the motives and the drivers of this. Both qualitative research methods and the like. One of the studies that we have just recently completed is whether the service delivery protests could be predicted. We will be presenting that report, and we show that they were quite predictable. So that report will bring, basically based on
The 702.
what, pardon?
702. That's the last question. Sorry.
Okay. Yes, no, I was continuing. So you are. I'm saying that process looks at where these situations occurred, looks at the data in terms of access to services, levels of poverty, and so on. And then, on the basis of that, you say, well, could this be predicted? We'll be presenting that report soon. You were saying sexual? Oh, no, sexual offenses, they are there. I mean, we do cover whether, we know that rape is terribly underreported. So is assault, particularly victimization of women. Those are, I'm sure it's there in the report. And it shows what you are saying. It gets underreported, that's why police records, not because it's police, just because the environment of reporting might be too hostile for anybody to go and report. But also the social setting at home where people say, no, don't report that thing. Let's deal with it here at home. So that's the point I'm making, that every crime, like every birth and every death, must be reported. Because unless those things are known, you cannot actually plan, especially when crime drives investments and or undermines investment and undermines all kinds of things. It needs to be known. But we have to remove the bottlenecks and those things that make people fear to report these crimes. That must be the task of institutions, to remove the bottlenecks and the impediments for reporting. And people must feel secure that they can report without being rebuked.
Apologies, SG. Those polls can be a bit long at times, so I thought you were done. Okay, 702.
Sorry, Leslie.
So,
Sorry,
Yes, Auntie, is there a question?
Yes, we have a question in Cape Town.
Okay, I'll just quickly take a follow-up question from 702, then cross over to Cape Town.
Sorry, perhaps maybe I should rephrase my question, my line of questioning. What I was trying to understand is, when your people go into the households to do their survey, what measures do they have in place? For instance, if you do happen to be interviewing or giving a survey to a victim of sexual violence, which could be happening in that very household, to be able to get a kind of report or all those statistics from those people?
Let me try and understand. Yes, you go to a household, somebody has been raped. You get the information, yes, indeed, there was a rape that occurred here. It was reported, it was not reported. These are the circumstances why it was not reported. That's the line of asking the questions. There are also, and we experience this, instances where when you try to ask these questions, you open old wounds. And your enumerator at times doesn't know how to handle this. And they are not trained to handle those kinds of things. They're terrifying. So we have do have a process of escalation so that when you have opened old wounds, you have a way of dealing with those. Third, if the matter has not been reported, we don't advise, or we go to the police and say, you know, there was a rape there. No. We just ask, and we record, and we anonymize where we got the information from. That's the statistics practice. You have to protect information of individuals. Privacy is primary. So there was a case in the United States where murder was committed. And one of the people who was in field saw this person's face that was flashed on television, etc., that this is the murderer in this household. You can't report that to the police. You cannot. That's not your task. So he went to the priest to pray. He said, you know, I've seen some. You can't. It's just, we are sworn to that kind of secrecy that you can't. Because if you do, from a point of a good act, you can also do bad. So you can't. You see, you say nothing. You produce the statistics in aggregate. Not as individual things that so and so, no.
We'll take the last question in Cape Town. If I may indicate, ladies and gentlemen, we're running behind schedule. At 10 o'clock, we're supposed to release the QLFS report. So you are kindly requested to wrap up so that we proceed to the next session.
No.
Good morning.
No, let people ask questions. Yeah, just we can sensitize that there is a limit of time, but.
Good morning, sir, and good morning to your colleagues. I'm Jenny Evans from News 24 in Cape Town. So what do you mean by the police statistics are not official? Can you just clarify that? I know you said then you don't think that they've been massaged, but can you just elaborate on that, please?
By official statistics, there is something called statistics.
Sorry, SG, there is another question.
Oh.
Thank you, SG, for the informative presentation. I just wanted to check because I think from what we're hearing today, it shows that crime remains a huge issue in South Africa, though the statistics shows that there's some level of decline. But I wanted to check from you what sort of policy recommendation can you give with regards to such results where crime remains a huge issue, especially in South Africa?
Well, let me start with that. I mean, all crimes must be reported. And the tactical response and strategic response of law enforcement must derive that from all crime having been reported. And administrative records, that is when you go and report, you say, I come from this house in this area, makes combating of crime much easier when the police know where crimes occurred. From the survey perspective, yes, we give social correlates and determinants of crime. But we are not able to pinpoint, even if we did, we would not tell you that crime happened in this household. So administrative records for policing crime are very important for the police, and that's why they must be, all crimes must be reported. So we are part of accomplices in crime by not reporting all crimes. So we should, as citizens, report all crimes to enable police to do their work better. Coming back to official statistics, there is a Statistics Act, Act 6 of 1999, Act 6 of 1999, which talks to the role of the Statistician-General, the Minister, and Statistics Council. The responsibility of the Statistician-General is to declare statistics official, but having satisfied him or herself of all the requirements that enable statistics to be official. Currently, police statistics don't meet, or crime statistics as generated by police don't meet that criteria. And that's why we are working with them to move towards making sure that their statistics meet that criteria. And that criteria has to comply with the 10 fundamental principles of official statistics. They must be collected with the best methods. They must comply with the quality arrangements. They have to be simultaneous. They must be released to everybody at the same time. There cannot be privileged release of results. They don't meet those criteria, and therefore they cannot be official. So there is a lot that we are doing with the police to make sure that the statistics become official. And you can see that there are elements in the statistics of crime, particularly of murder, where reporting is quite comprehensive. It's much higher than reporting from households. And of course, through their own inquests, the police cover more crimes than in murder than we do, because you might find a body murdered. From a household, if that thing they don't know from which household that person came, they'll never know, but the police will add that as part of their work. So there's a lot of work that is, and the environment of types of crimes in police, they're so intricate. I mean, when you sit with them and you go through what this means, how it is recorded, etc., etc., it's very, very intricate. And we have to move with them in that process. And once we have satisfied, the Statistician-General has satisfied himself or herself about that, then the statistics will be official. And one characteristic of that will be, it will not be the police announcing their numbers.
Both questions answered, SG.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, are there any questions before we render the session closed?